Okay, Kirby, I don't know if you know this, but today, the day this drops, September 30th, is International Podcast Day.
Hmm.
Now, generally, when we talk about podcasts here, we talk about, well, what's your favorite podcast to listen to? What are you listening? I don't want to do that. It feels like we've done that a
Okay.
lot, and we've done it recently. I think it's good to revisit that about every year or so, but I don't think there's a need to do that right now. So
Okay.
it's my topic. We're not talking about that. But what I do
Love it.
want to talk about is podcasting. Is a podcast still the important content marketing vehicle, or is it losing its relevancy given the fact that there's so many of them? I mean, the proliferation of podcasts, there's a alliteration for you. The proliferation of podcasts to people is really, really, it's a saturated market. Is it still a viable content marketing vehicle?
Absolutely. Honestly, I think more and more as people do it better and better, right? Like,
Yep.
it's funny. I talk a lot about this. I mean, if you have a shitty podcast, then no, it's not great, right? But
Right.
if it's a good podcast that people listen to, I think it is a powerful media. I actually interviewed Tom Schwab. He is the founder of Interview Valet on Delivering Marketing Joy on my other podcast, and it was interesting to he talked about OPP. He said
Do you know me?
yeah, that's right, other people's platforms. He said if somebody wanted to give him, if Oprah offered to give him $1 million or have him on her show, he would take the eyeballs every time because attention
Right.
is so powerful right now. And because it is that implicit endorsement. It is that, they get to know and see and trust you. And then all of a sudden it changes the sales funnel. So yeah, I actually
Right.
think that done right, podcasting is even more powerful. Now, I will say that I think it's shifted, right? It's funny because for me, I'm a listener of audio podcasts generally, because that's when I have the time. I'm
Right.
running, I'm mowing, whatever. But video podcasting has made it change.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
people just consume it differently, and it's a different
Yep.
platform. And I think both of those things are good things. So I'm a fan. And I think
Yeah.
it continues to grow.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I agree that, there are a lot of podcasts out there, but there's
Sure.
good ones, there's okay ones, and there's terrible ones.
Sure.
And our industry has a ton of podcasts, and there's good ones and there's terrible ones. And it's just like any industry out there. And so the cream rises to the top. And I think because it's a great equalizer, right? I mean, there's no barrier to entry really to starting a podcast. So
Yeah, very little.
anybody can do it. But to keep doing it and successfully do it to a point where it accomplishes your goals, whatever that is, whether it's to drive business, whether it's to educate, whether it's inform, whether it's entertain, or all the above, or something else, that's this true separator. So it's just like anything else, the cream rises to the top. So it doesn't just because everybody has one does not devalue the medium. And
Right.
that's kind of was my
Agreed.
question.
Yeah, well, I think the other piece is redefining success. You and I have talked about this in the past,
Hmm.
but I think it's worth
Hmm.
saying. Like, I think so many times people will go, "Well, I have to have a
Yep.
million followers." No, you
Yep.
don't.
No, you don't.
Seth Godin talks about this, that if you have 1,000 true fans, then you have
Yep.
enough to build a business on. You have enough to build a life on.
Yeah.
And 1,000's a lot when you're first starting out, but it's also attainable. And so
Yeah.
when you can start out and say, look, I've got 20 people listening or 3 people listening, if they're
Right.
really passionately following you, man, there is super power in that. And so again,
Yeah.
I was actually talking about, sorry to go off on a tangent here, but I was actually just talking about this in a video I dropped today, that
Mhm.
one of the reasons that people say, well, content doesn't work is because it's not good content. Right? Like if
Exactly.
it doesn't entertain, it doesn't educate, it doesn't inspire. And
Right.
if it doesn't do those things, and it's just something that you're saying is content marketing or a podcast disguised as an ad, then your
Yeah.
audience sees through that super fast.
100%. The other thing I would add is people give up on content and developing good
Yeah.
content because two things. One, they want this immediate reaction.
Right.
And I will tell you, I'll talk about some stats here in a minute about us. But, we've been doing a podcast for a long time, and there's times where it blows up and we don't know why. And there's times where it's like nobody's listening, and maybe because it's summer vacations or it's this or it's that. You just never really
Or that
know.
podcast
If
sucked
people
that
are
week.
listening. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe we're off that week. It
Yeah,
happens. So, but that's one. But the other thing is too many people chase likes and comments. They're meaningless, because I will tell you, I look at the stats. I know within really good reason how many people watch or listen to this podcast, and it's a lot. It's lots more than people realize. The amount of comments though and likes and things like that on social, you think 6 people really listen, and it's quite a few more than that. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not going to be braggy here, but we have a very successful, what I think you and I would consider a successful podcast. Now, what I wanted to share though, Kirby, I did a little digging. We've been doing a weekly podcast, save for a 5-week break we took. We've been doing a weekly podcast, you and I, since July 1st, 2016. So for 6 years, minus 5 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Between the 2 podcasts we have 323 episodes. That's 206 unscripted, which you can find over at our friends over at Promo Corner, and 117 this episode of Promo UPFront. That's if we average 30 minutes of podcast, okay, that's 161 and a half hours of listening to us yammer on. That's a lot of us. Yeah, that's 6.7 days of nonstop Kirby and Bill. I've also figured out that was now it's 537 nicknames I've made up for you. 277 times you have said, it's interesting. 392 times
I don't believe that you counted that.
392 times I've referenced Van Halen.
Okay.
14 times we've podcasted with, let's call it lubrication, shall we? A little bit of boozy booze, a little light deep night situation.
Okay.
And last 7 times you've walked off the podcast because I was singing. Now, you didn't do that today.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty good about that. That's all. It was the beginning. I couldn't do it. So International Podcast Day. So hey, if you're podcasting, keep doing it. Get better at it the more you do it. Yes. If you're thinking about doing a podcast, you feel like you have something to say, do it. Jump in. I mean, we need everybody's voice. So there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, the thing that you said there was really important, that, if you you start it, keep doing it, you'll get better at it. It takes time for people to find you. It takes time for you to find your tribe. I actually was talking about this with James Hicks the other day, when people will ask me, like, well, doesn't feel like as many people are listening. I feel like I'm in a lull. I feel like this. What should I do? My advice is always do one more tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, we started out doing this because, frankly, we were paid by Promo Corner. That's how we started doing this, right?
Right.
It's morphed into, for me, and I believe for you, I don't want to speak for you, which means I'm absolutely about to, but this time I'm spending right here, right now with you is enjoyment. This is fun for me. Yeah. It's fun putting it out there. And then, that's it. This is now the peak. I enjoy this. So it's become something that's self-affirming for me. I think you and I enjoy it. I learn from you. I think hopefully we learn from each other.
For sure.
So keep doing it.